right, gentlemen, good job. First act is down. We are done talking about domestic policy thus far. We are going to move on to international policy, which there's a lot going on.
15 seconds for something about law enforcement.
I will give, if I give you 15 seconds, I have to give Mr. Davis 15 seconds.
Yeah, that's fine.
You both. We have a hardcore negotiation going on here, people. Mr. Okpa, you have 15 seconds to talk crime. Mr. Davis, you have 15 to talk immigration.
I have done the FBI Citizens Program. I've done the Dallas Police Citizens Program, and I served in the Dallas Police Oversight Board. I have more 60 hours of law enforcement training without being a sworn officer. Here's something that we do that is not
15 seconds is up.
The federal government, we should pass a legislation that bans police associations to endorse municipal candidates. Once you do that, then they will do their job. Because right now, they are beholden for council members.
Thank you. Out of courtesy and respect, you have 15 seconds to answer what you wanted to on immigration.
Okay. Well, I want to answer the police thing. Look, I was born and raised in the Bronx. I was there for 18 years. Extremely violent place. And I think a lot of Republicans are pressured to think that going against the police is somehow a self-interest of people that grow up in those types of areas. And let me tell you, all of the parents of the kids when I was younger that we saw pass away from drugs and gun violence and all kinds of gang violence, they all always ask one question: where are the police? And I am going to make sure that the police are there, because it is the poor and the middle class that are disproportionately hurt with no police.
Thank you. Thank you. See, I knew we weren't done with domestic policy, y'all. I knew it. I had an inkling. But now we're going to shift and go overseas. All right. We're going to talk international, what's going on, current events. We're going to start with the Ukraine. Russia has been deploying troops along the Ukraine border for weeks now. Just 2 weeks ago, your opponent, Colin Allred, went to Ukraine with a group on the Foreign Services Committee to advocate that Ukraine needs to reject Russian aggression and remain a democracy. There have been high tensions between Biden and Putin about what engagement looks like between our nations. And today, President Biden is sending 1,700 troops to Poland to facilitate the evacuation of thousands of Americans living in the Ukraine. Let's begin with Mr. Webb. What do you think the U.S.'s role, I want you to hear this, what do you think the U.S.'s role should be in the Ukraine-Russia conflict? You have 90 seconds.
Go get him.
So, first off, when did Ukraine invade Crimea? Who was in office? A Democrat. They've used the weakness that we've shown to the world during democratic administrations to take advantage of us. The failed pullout of Afghanistan, the debacle there has emboldened both Xi in China and Putin in Russia to take these aggressive measures, because they know that Joe Biden and the Democrats don't have the stomach or the back to stand up to them.
That's right.
He's sending troops there? Where the hell were those people when we were trying to get our American citizens out of Afghanistan?
Right.
And then Colin Allred go in there and saying, you got to stand up to Russia. That's like going to somebody's bleeding on the ground saying, hey man, you got to stop that bleeding. It's ridiculous. Show you're strong, do something about it, station troops nearby, and let Putin know what is going to happen if he invades.
So what do you think Congress's role should be if Putin does invade?
If Putin does invade, we need to do what we haven't done should it come to an armed conflict, what we haven't done since World War II is actually declare a formal war. Not this crap that we've been doing where we agree to fund some sort of military conflict and then Congress decides to unfund it later when they get tired of it. If we're going to go in, we have to go in all the way, have the stomach to put up the fight and let Putin know that we're not going to back down. So what can we do? Pass a resolution, send more troops to the area. Not enough that we provoke a war, but stand strong and let him know who he's messing with.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, good news. You're on my list to answer this question. Mr. Davis, what do you think the U.S.'s role should be in the Ukrainian-Russia conflict? You have 60 seconds.
I agree with what Justin said earlier about this is what happens when you have a super weak, almost kind of clownish president that can barely read a teleprompter, right? We think it's funny. But she and Putin are rolling around the floor laughing hilariously at what we've got in Washington, D.C. at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. I vehemently disagree with Justin here. I'm thankful for his service and everything. I don't want to get into a war with Russia at all. I go back to my policies about the American family. I only want to shed American blood as an absolute last resort. Putin is no humongous friend of ours. He's a KGB thug. But I don't want to put our men and women on the front lines to fight them militarily. They are a nuclear power. This is going to end extremely badly. What I am for, I'm okay with doing human and signet intelligence, helping out the Ukrainians and giving them some weapons. But I think we're all warred out, and the military-industrial complex does not need us leading into another war.
Thank you. Mr. Okpa, I'm going to give you the opportunity. Oh, well, yes, you have 30 seconds to respond, and then we'll go to Mr. Okpa. Yes.
All right, so let me be clear. I'm not advocating we go to war with Russia whatsoever. I think allowing him to take the territory that he wants is exactly what happened in World War II. We tried to appease the Nazis. We cannot do that, and we have to stand strong, not allow him to take any other land, especially from free democracies that we need to be supporting around the world. It's a Cold War all over again, and we have to draw the line somewhere, and we draw it here.
Thank you. That was a tight 15 seconds. I appreciate that. Mr. Okpa, I'm going to allow you to answer this question. You will have 60 seconds. What do you think the U.S.'s role should be in the Ukrainian-Russian conflict? You have 60 seconds.
Should America be the policeman of the world? That's the question we need to ask. Should American blood be wasted for irresponsible countries? When they come home, they become homeless, and then we don't even take care of them. We should not get into unnecessary wars. If neighboring countries cannot have the responsibility for love thy neighbor, America will say, good luck to you. It's very important. Because all over the world, our soldiers, and they come home, they've lost a limb, they lost a hand, because they were fighting for people who don't appreciate the American value. We should stop doing that. Yeah. We should stop doing that. They should be responsible to protect themselves and not draw us into useless, irresponsible act. Putin, if you want to go to whatever country you want to go, good luck to you. Until you kill an American, then we come after you.
All right, gentlemen, we're going to stay in the same vein, but we're going to shift gears a little bit. Mr. Namdar, Congress is looking to repeal the 2001 Authorized Use of Military Force. Do you think with these tensions that that is the right decision? You have 90 seconds.
I think that right now, authorized use of military force, we have to embolden our constituencies to make decisions. Thank you for your service again. We all know you served, but we also have to say we have other technologies and methods that we can use. From sanctions to also a lot more military might and also diplomacy. But at the same time, we have to put the acts of the war to the acts of the people to decide if we want to go to war. We cannot say it's carte blanche by the president or anyone else. It's unconstitutional. So we have to make sure that the Congress has the ability to decide and that we don't reverse any of those things. So I think I don't want to reverse that 2001 Act.
So you would vote not to reverse?
Yeah, I want Congress for us not to, I don't want Biden to say go to war and then we don't have any rights to be able to say nope, yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to allow Mr. Day to respond to the same question. Congress is looking at repealing the 2001 Authorized Use of Military Force. Do you think with these tensions that that is the right decision?
Yes, repeal it. I don't want use of force. And frankly, let me be very, very clear here. I care deeply about U.S. border integrity. I don't give a damn about Ukraine's border integrity.
Mr. Webb, I'm going to give you 30 seconds to respond. Your opinion, or excuse me, 60 seconds on Congress's ability or looking to repeal the authorized use of military force.
absolutely support the repeal of authorized use of military force. The Constitution gives Congress alone the ability to declare war.
Right.
We haven't done that again since World War II. Absolutely think that it should be put back in the hands of Congress and not whatever bureaucrat or whoever in the military-industrial complex decides that they need to squeeze some profit out of a third country.
Right.
However, we, unfortunately, as our role is the only superpower left in the world, we are the world's policemen. I have spent 20 years of my life traveling around the world in various countries, ensuring those allies and those alliances stay strong. We can't allow Putin to take Ukraine. We can't allow China to take Taiwan, because the world looks to us for our leadership. That's something with this administration in the last few years that we have started slipping from. We have to once again stand up and say we will not stand for this. We're not going to let aggressive dictators anywhere in the world push their agenda on innocent people. For 200 years, we've spread democracy around the world. We can't allow that to start losing the gains that we've made over the last century.
Thank you. Let's talk about Afghanistan.
Let's do it.
Just last August, our nation witnessed a devastating withdrawal out of Afghanistan that cost 13 service members their lives and countless images of desperation from the Afghani people. And last week, the leader of the Islamic State was growing the presence of ISIS again throughout the region. And thanks to our special forces drawing near his home, he killed himself and unfortunately his family. Mr. Day, what should Congress's posture be towards the Middle East? And who do you think presents the greatest threat to America within the region? You have 90 seconds.
Obviously, the greatest threat is Iran. It's part of the axis of evil. And we do need to, while not being the world's policeman, we do need to rein in Iran at every single step. Now, in answer to your question about Afghanistan, I'm still waiting for the House investigation into how that withdrawal was botched so badly. I mean, we need a new Speaker of the House so we can get to the bottom of why that debacle happened.
Perfect. I want to just re-ask this question because you do have a few more seconds. What should Congress's posture be towards the Middle East from a foreign policy perspective?
We want to counter Iran's aggressions. We want to support our allies in the Middle East, especially Israel.
Thank you. Mr. Okpa, I'm going to ask the same question of you. What should Congress's posture be towards the Middle East? And who do you think presents the greatest threat to America within the region? You have 60 seconds.
Obviously, you have Iran, and then you have Afghanistan. I mean, those places are, again, countries that are considered to be irresponsible. And they always play to us, our emotional. And so we start giving them money. You look at how much money we have given to Iran, to that region, and at the end, they're still going to come back and attack us. Cut off the money given. Cut it off. And let them take care of themselves. If they cannot do it, I have a legislation I want to push. When new companies are not doing well and somebody takes them over, they say, under new management, if you are an irresponsible country, invite us and we'll be under new management. And we manage you until you are responsible enough to take care of yourself, and then we can walk away. But America should stop giving money to countries. Because they turn around and they have us.
So I have a follow-up question. If you're going to put a country under new management, typically a company is also getting new funding.
No, we go manage them with their own money. They pay us. They pay us because they love the American way. They're paying us for our expertise, and not to give them money and hoping that they're going to get it right, because they haven't gotten it right. And look at how many billions of dollars we've given to Afghanistan. Russia walked away from them. And then we came in thinking that with our American love, they're going to love us back. They haven't loved us back.
Thank you, Mr. Okpa.
Stop giving them money.
All right, thank you. I hope he doesn't become a corporate raider. Otherwise, we're all hung out to dry. Mr. Namdar, I'd like for you to answer this question. What should Congress's posture be towards the Middle East? And who do you think presents the greatest threat to America within the region? You have 60 seconds.
So this is easy, but the United States of America has to be also the moral standard of who we are. And my parents came from Iran, and it's now one of 2 theocratic nations left. Iran is the #1 terror sponsor nation on earth. Now we gave Afghanistan pretty much to them. We got Pakistan that's over there. Iraq is now part of Iran. Saudi Arabia is not doing anything to help us. When has Saudi been with us in Afghanistan or Iran? We need smarter people on Foreign Affairs Committee. I do believe that. We need smarter people to go over there into the Middle East and say, hey, this is what's in our interest. It's not what's in our interest. We were in a 20-year war and it collapsed. Therefore, adopting the American way or democratic way doesn't work in certain nations. It does not. And if I see what happened in the Islamic Republic of Iran and see what's happened in the United States, we need to make sure we pick our battles wisely, but have a firm understanding on the global stage that if you want to come at the United States, good luck. Good luck. But we do not need to go and try to change the culture of anyone else. And our stance with the Middle East, I think I'd be really great with the foreign affairs. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's fly east. Let's go to China. China. I can't help it. China. All right. So, for the next 2 weeks, globally, the world is seeing China on their televisions while cheering for their national Olympians. During the opening ceremony and the following day, China and Russia released a joint statement where they affirm that, quote, the new interstate relations between Russia and China are superior to political and military alliances of the Cold War era. Mr. Davis, who presents a greater threat to America? And what is your proposal to keep that country in check? You have 90 seconds.
The Olympics that are going on right now, to me, there's the genocide games. We should have never allowed our athletes to go to those games. What China is doing to the Uyghurs is nothing short of an extermination. The fact that we play games with China is because they have our DC Democrat ruling class in their back pocket, right? And China is our biggest enemy on the global stage, right? I don't want to get into a nuclear battle with these guys at all. But we need to start economically decoupling from China so they cannot use that to crush the American economy. They are getting dangerously close to overtaking our economic power, and when they do, they are going to come after us like wild tigers. And we're going to wish for the days like today when they were not coming after us like that. We need to decouple. I don't care if they make a couple of DVDs, that's fine. But any microchips or anything dealing with our healthcare or our computer calculation systems or anything, all of that needs to come home, or we need to move it to another country that is our friend.
So I just want to follow up on the decoupling of the economic capacity with China and America. Can you give us for 30 seconds your analysis or your belief about the America Competes Act and how that's going to affect America and China?
Yeah, well, I'm totally against the America Competes Act, right? But by the way, we're going to do like another visa program there. It's the W program, so it goes back to my whole immigration concept that I had earlier. I don't want to rehash that. But there's one thing I want to talk to about, just about decoupling from China, and that is on our own soil. They own, they're increasingly owning our farmland. We need to seize that property. Chinese nationalists should not be owning anything up and down the food industry in this country. If you think they're doing it for our self-interest, you have another thing coming to you.
Thank you, thank you. Mr. Webb, I'm going to ask you the same question. Between Russia and China, who presents the greatest threat to America, and what is your proposal to keep that country in check?
So
you have 60 seconds.
Thank you. I got to say, I almost completely agree with him. That was a fantastic answer, so thank you for that. The one thing that I would add there in the decoupling is the reason we started sending jobs and manufacturing to China in the first place is because it was cheaper there. Why was it cheaper? We have too much government regulation. There's not a single problem in this country that you cannot trace to there being too much government. So China's the biggest threat. Get our manufacturing back home, just like he said with the farmland, agriculture. They're buying up all of our commercial space as well. We've got to get China out of our country. That's the end of it.
So you do have 30 seconds left, so let me follow up on regulation. So what regulations would you cut in order to bring businesses back to China, back to America?
Payroll tax, for one thing. Across the board, it's going to be mostly taxes. The tariffs, there was one thing that I really agreed with was against China was imposing tariffs upon them and increasing the price of their goods coming to the United States. But if we can deregulate, lower taxes, lower manufacturing costs, and if you build a factory today, you would not believe how many EPA certifications you have to go through in this country. Get them out of the way. If you're not polluting the world, if you're not dropping toxic chemicals into the ground, which the government has been doing for 100 years, let the people build a factory. It's concrete and metal. Build the damn thing.
All right, Mr. Day, I'm going to allow you to answer this question. Would you like for me to repeat it? Okay, wonderful. You have 60 seconds.
China obviously is the #1 problem, and yes, cut down purchase of farmland in the U.S. by China. Also, we've got to, thank you, but we also have to cut off all the Chinese students that are at universities that are being paid by the Chinese government to steal our research on U.S. universities. But there's one thing that I would love to see is some tax credits given to U.S. companies that move their operations to the U.S. And then, if it can't be done for whatever reason, then a smaller tax credit given for moving that operation to South America. Thank you again. It would also probably help somewhat our supply chain problem in not having to ship things across the Pacific Ocean. But yes, let's move, as Justin very, very eloquently said, let's cut down the regulation so those operations move back to U.S. soil.
Follow-up question to that. So when it comes to tax credits, are you suggesting that the government subsidize companies moving back to America?
Short term, yes.
Seconds.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
That was faster than 30 seconds.
Yeah,
Do you want to
go.
elaborate?
No.
All right, excellent. Let's talk about existential crises. We hear them all the time coming from the left. And for the past few years, Americans have heard that climate change is an existential crisis. And many scientists warn that if we don't solve it, the world will end by 2030. As of February 19th, 2021, the Biden administration rejoined the Paris Climate Accord in the crisis on the environment. And we have seen a massive number of congressional bills include climate provisions or subsidies over the last year. Mr. Okpa, what government intervention on climate do you support? Please detail your position on climate and energy. You have 90 seconds.
I don't think I support anything that's coming from the left. You know, Al Gore is the one that put up all this climate change stuff on us, and we've been rattling. Okay, but here's the question I ask the scientist. The sun rises from the east and sets in the west, is that not? Has the sun changed its position? So what climate are we talking about that has changed? If the sun, that is the biggest factor in affecting our climate, has consistently rose from the east and set in the west. So the scientists are using this to scare us, and the media hypes it up. The God that has given us this earth is not going to just let it destroy. So we have to be responsible in certain things we have to do, but please, the climate change factor is a hoax, just like Al Gore founded the internet.
Follow-up question to you. Do you believe that we should be in the Paris Climate Accord?
No, I don't think we should. We have more important things to do to save our environment, save our community, than get into this thing that has no answer, except for government to keep pumping money, bribing, unsophisticated countries to sign on. The sun rises, you wake up tomorrow, where does it going to rise from? And then where's it going to set? So what climate are we talking about that is changing? Until the sun rises from the west and sets in the east, then I know it has changed.
Davis, what government intervention on climate do you support? Do you think that we should be in the Paris Climate Accord? Please detail your position on climate and energy. You have 60 seconds.
No, we shouldn't be in the climate accord at all. It's being used by China to suppress our economic power. That's what it's being. They're not in it. Even if they were, they don't abide by it. Right? That's what it's all about. We need to talk about the climate change. I'm not a climatologist. I have no idea. They say over the past 100 years, the globe has gotten 1% Celsius hotter. So be it, right? But that's not what it's being used for at a policy level. At a policy level, it is used for raising taxes. Globally, the global taxes that we talked about earlier, and by Washington, D.C. to raise taxes on essentially red states. It's about taking resources from states, moving it to Washington, D.C., so they can line their pockets with it. And now they're playing the game at a global level where they're going to start imposing global taxes so the global elite can start stealing our resources. I say hell no to that. That's what I say.
Mr. Day, I'm going to allow you to answer this question as well. What government intervention on climate do you support? Do you believe we should be in the Paris Climate Accord? Please detail your position on climate and energy. You have 60 seconds.
Get out of the Paris Climate Accord right now. There's no reason. All it does is hurt our economy to help China and India. You know, everybody in this room wants clean air and clean water. Republicans care deeply about clean air and clean water. But we're going to end in 2030 because of climate change. I've actually got a bet with a liberal associate. If in the year 2030, the world is still turning, he has to give me all his money. And in the world, and in the year 2030, if the world does end, then I'll give him all my money.
Hey, Jimmy, can I come on this one?
Yes, you may. You have 30 seconds.
First of all, guess what the problem is? It's the federal government. The federal government is the single largest polluter in the entire world, more than 144 countries combined. 900 of the 1,200 Superfund sites in the United States are all military bases. The government in 2012 specifically exempted themselves from having to report their emissions and how much they were polluting. How dare they tell me how I'm going to live my life and what kind of car I can drive when the hypocrites up in Washington are the ones destroying the planets themselves?
Right.
Yeah. 30 seconds as well.
Nailed it, all of them, nailed it. But one thing that's important that I think, this is really important, honestly, is that sometimes, with our constituency too and our younger people, they get confused between climate change and pollution or being green and all that stuff. Republicans love our great wilderness. They love clean water. They love everything like that. But understanding between climate change versus pollution and not letting that dialogue get mixed up is something that our next congressional candidate against Colin Allred is going to have to be able to do across the district. Because sometimes they think it's the same thing and it's not. So you have to explain the difference. So I think it's important for us to do that as well. Let them know. Great point.
Thank you. I have one follow-up question regarding energy. We haven't touched on energy policy yet. I'd like for Mr. Webb, you may begin. Energy policy, everyone here, let's just blanket state, you all believe in American energy independence?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. What are the ways, Mr. Webb, I'm going to give you 30 seconds. I'll give each of you 30 seconds to detail what are the best ways that you propose Congress create energy independence?
So I don't think it's Congress's job whatsoever to create energy independence. They've done nothing to help us whatsoever. They've restricted the ability to produce clean hydrocarbons by cutting the throats basically of the energy companies that are best equipped to do that. The federal government isn't the one that's been bringing EV cars out to the country. It's been private companies. Private companies are better equipped to handle energy crises and better equipped to handle everything in the entire country better than the federal government is. So the answer is privatize it. Congress shouldn't be in charge of it.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, would you like 30 seconds to detail your policies for energy?
Yeah. So it's really easy. It's oil and nuclear. That's really the future, right? I am quite tired of Washington, D.C. constantly building these wind farms in these solar fields, always like in rural areas, in places that they think is so cool. So this is what I have to say about Washington, D.C. Next time they want to do a wind farm and a solar farm, we're putting that in the Hollywood Hills. We're putting that off of Hamptons because they don't believe in what they say, right? And it's time to stop playing games with our energy, because as we become less energy independent, we become more prone to war.
Thank you.
Less energy independent, right? And that's very important. As we become energy independent, we won't be involved as much in international wars.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Day, I'm giving each of you 30 seconds to talk through your thoughts on Congress and energy policy.
Pretty simple, 6 words: get government out of the way. President Trump started the process cutting 6,000 regulations, many of them in the energy industry. Let's continue that. Let's have a Congress that supports getting rid of all those regulations that strangle the U.S. energy production industry. Thank you.
Mr. Okpa, 30 seconds to talk about energy in Congress.
Again, it's about the regulations that affect our companies from doing things that will benefit the Americans. You know, EPA, when was EPA established? I think it was under Carter or something like that. You know, that regulation, America has more energy abundant in this country than anywhere else. And we have the creative and innovative solution to address that. I mean, when Trump was there, we were zero, we were net exporting. All of a sudden, the Democrats, in order to line the pocket of their friends overseas, we're starting now, I go to the gas pump, I'm paying twice.
Thank you, Mr. Okpa.
So we have to have a regulation that says first for America.
Thank you. Mr. Namdar, give you 30 seconds to talk energy, Congress, and your policy positions.
What you just said about the gas pumps, imagine running for office on inflation too when you're running a campaign. It's really hard and it affects your bottom line. Like, it's terrible. I'm telling you this right now, from everything. But energy, I'm for innovation. It doesn't matter at the end of the day. Whether it's as long as we're protected and we're good and we cut down regulations, I'm all for it. We have wind, okay, you want to invest in it, that's your right. It's not my right to tell you what to invest in. You want to invest in oil? Well, this is Texas. Of course I support oil. And at the end of the day, we're going to keep making sure that we have our oil industry. I'm going to make sure we cut the regulations to pull it back, tell OPEC to stop opening the spout. But at the end of the day, we have to do what the constituency wants, but I'm for innovation for energy across all sectors.
Thank you.